And then we say Phil had faith, had a spirit, you know, to elevate them all from wherever they was at the time, you know, whether it be the rat or the prison camps.
How did you prepare your team for the great physical efforts that they would have to put out, and also the psychological?
And again, I think everybody came into this. We had such a respect for the men who came before and really went through this. So there was absolutely nothing they could suffer that was remotely comparable to what these men actually went through. And we all knew that. It was never a question. No one ever compared them. But when you speak about the mind and the spirit, and there's something we can't even understand. That Louis held that beam over his head, and it's on record. It's all the other prisoners wrote in their individual diaries. He held it over his head for 37 minutes and never dropped it until he was beaten. He could never explain it himself, what that was that took over, because Jack tried to actually hold it.
How long could you hold it?
36.
Clearly physically much stronger than Drew would have been in that moment. And I mean, took you fainted. I mean, almost, blacked out and had it's impossible. It's impossible, like when somebody explains that a mother lifts a car when their child's under it. There's something, and I think there's something very interesting in that, to remember to tap into about the individual will. As Jack said, it comes with not just the strength of will, but a sense of faith and connection to non-body.
Well, spirituality is another theme of the film that runs through. Louis had a struggle with it, at least at this period of his life, right? I mean, he's exposed to God early in his life, we're shown, but really his faith seems to be in himself for most of the movie that he learned. The athleticism from his family and his mother, but then I guess later in life he came to God. Was that like a really important part of telling the story to involve that spiritual element for him, or just throughout?
It is a part of it. It's part of his message to be a very strong faith, and it's very, very important. And what was also important to us is that that faith would be a part of the story, and we would understand how he came to it, how he was raised, and what he learned along his journey, and where he questioned faith, and where he came to the light, or to something that he believed in. But we also wanted to make a film that would also be for audiences that are not people of strong faith. And it was important to Louis as well. It wasn't just a movie for a particular faith or this individual faith, because it should be universal. So we tried to balance that and approach faith that way.
So, Miali, I actually asked myself this question about the bird, whether he was also driven by a belief or a commitment to God, and our understanding, or my understanding at least at that point, was the emperor was seen as a kind of earthly incarnation of a god, or if he was more tortured by demons.
Can you speak slowly, please?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. Do you think the bird was more committed to the idea of a god in the emperor or in Japan, or if he had more demons, if he was more tortured than?
I don't know. I'm not in a position to represent any kind of things like that. But in that era, everyone was under command. Everyone was suffering, and I mean, especially in an extreme condition. And then we came down to we believe that he was also tortured internally. He had issue with his father when I was a child, and then that's the similarity I got between him and me. I was also in a professional soccer team, and I got injured, and I got kind of some trauma when I was a child. So he was also trying to release his evil kind of feeling by torturing people, and he wanted to be like Louis. Louis is the guy he wanted to be, and he wanted to achieve. He wanted, but he couldn't. But Louis had everything what the bird wanted. So they're really alike, but the bird knew that he couldn't break Louis. So the scene in the very end, physically, the boy was beating and winning, but mentally, he knew that he was losing. He couldn't break down Louis. So spirituality is really important. Even I was praying every day, because this thing is for everyone who sacrificed, and then everyone was a victim. There's no winner. So I'm not sure how much he believed in God, but just humanity was really the most important thing.
So you've already said that you were not going to hug it out with the crew after your distinct character, but I'm just wondering, this must have been a really intense bonding experience for the cast and the crew, and really intimate, especially maybe even on the raft scenes. Any stories
That's for sure.
about intimate bonding on that?
First, we actually tried to get all three of you in one raft to try to figure out whose foot goes where and how we could sleep.
How many days with that were you on the water, or whatever water that happened?
I think it was about 2 weeks at the we shot the second half of the raft stuff first. I think that was about 2 weeks, and then it was like a week or so during the healthy phase. Yeah, but yeah, there's no way not to get to know a buddy if you're starving and cold and hugging each other all the time.
Just the one tragic raw fish.
Yeah. So that's a real raw fish that we ate.
How many times did you have to eat that fish?
Yeah, a couple. I blocked it out.
We couldn't get a matching fake fish that was made of something else, and so we had it's you're boys and.
It's getting an image of Jolie as a director. Just eat the fish.
You could see, we did a few, they passed it around, and you could see the ones that were okay, because they eat them, they take bites, they talk, and then you can see when they got a bad fish. It's like a tiny bag, try to pass it away. And a tiny little thing hidden of mouthwash on the bottom of the mouth. That was all we did.
We had hair of yak testicle for beers.
Well, there was a certain time in our beard where they had to put them on.
This is part of the process. This was an integral part of the process. It was testicle hair, Angelina. The most fitting version of hair out there is on the testicle of a yak somewhere in Australia. And yeah, so but it was on the fish. We were eating raw fish complemented with yak oil.
Because we shot in and out of order, so sometimes we shot the end first, and then they had their beards grown and they were very skinny. And then when we came back and shot the beginning of the raft, they couldn't grow out their facial hair. So a lot of the scenes was actually hand-laid hair on their faces. And when they ate the fish, it mixed together. Apparently it has something to do with the yak, but I'm not.
They now call me Yak the Lad.
It's all protein. But on a more serious note, I mean, how did you develop the trust, especially in the really intense scenes in the camp, where some of that looked very, very intense and real?
Yeah, we kept a distance between ourselves.
Yeah.
And that helped for something organic in front of camera. In terms of trust, I guess there's not a great deal of time to think about that or build that even. I benefited from the RV's preset soccer skills in the scene.
Accurate? You're accurate. Kicking.
Yeah, you managed to leave enough room for it to look believable and not injured. I'm still thankful. So yeah, I mean, by about the third take, there was a level of trust there. But yeah, that has to be found relatively quickly. I mean, look, in all seriousness as well, by the time we were on the raft, very early, there was a general consensus. Everyone felt very fortunate to have had any part in the process of making this film. And so I felt like I hit the ground running with all of the cast. I was very fortunate again to be surrounded by not only professionals, but very committed, hard-working actors. And that certainly helped us, as I say, hit the ground running.
Yeah, and it often, you never know what you're going to get when you walk into a movie. But it kind of felt like a jigsaw puzzle that all come together once, like in terms of the cast sort of fitting, and at first you think that's like just a miracle, and then you realize that actually Angie cast this movie for like a lot of time, and a lot of months, and really thought every single particle through. And so once we had gotten there, a lot of the work was done for us just by virtue of who we were playing with.
Well, it's very clear that you put a ton of thought into this. I mean, I have to say, on top of the amazing performances, it's an incredibly beautiful film. And if you win Roger Deakins his first Oscar, I will love you forever. So this is my final question. Did Mr. Zamparelli ever get to see any images of these guys in action before? I know you didn't see the film,
We
unfortunately.
saw the film. I brought you,
Oh, you did?
when he went, it wasn't the final film with all the visual effects and everything and all the music, but when he went into the hospital, we put it on my laptop and I held it over him.
That's a beautiful image to hold on to. Congratulations, everyone. And